storytelling is really the best marketing. And the branded content project just helps organizations learn how to do it well in a way that appeals to their advertisers, but also aligns with their values and the relationship that they have with their audience.
Welcome to Keep It Local, a podcast of the Local Media Association. The Local Media Association is intensely focused on helping local media companies discover new and sustainable business models. Hello, my name is Ryan, and welcome to the first edition of the Local Media Association podcast. I am overjoyed to be joined by Shannon Kinney, who is working with LMA on something called the Branded Content Project, but we'll talk about that in a second. What I wanted to do to start, Shannon, is to learn a little bit more about you, your involvement with the Local Media Association, and tell us about Dream Local Digital. I got to tell you, I visited your website and I was extraordinarily impressed.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to say, Ryan. And I am thrilled to be here. I started Dream Local Digital 16 years ago, if you can believe it, after spending many years in print media and then in creating sustainable digital business models for media companies like cars.com, careerbuilder.com, and several others. I started Dream Local Digital because I wanted to help both businesses and media companies create opportunities for themselves online. And so we started by supporting media companies with digital marketing fulfillment, and we've helped more than 75,000 businesses across North America since then with online marketing.
That is fantastic. 75,000?
It's been quite a road, a lot of planes, a lot of flying. And then also, I should have added, I got involved with Local Media Association just over, I want to say 12 or 13 years ago, initially as an attendee at their fantastic conferences, especially the ones around digital revenue growth. It's something that I'm so passionate about. And I started a business to help media companies with it. I felt so aligned with their mission about helping media companies create sustainable revenue models that it just felt like such a natural fit. And I was honored a couple years in to be asked to serve on their board. And I served on both the Local Media Foundation board and the Local Media Association board for many years. And then when my term expired, I focused on Dream Local a little longer. And then I'm just so excited to be back and supporting the Branded Content Project.
It sounds like a worthwhile mission. It's one that I believed in. It's why I'm involved with Local Media Association myself. The importance of journalism, especially at the local level, is just huge. And branded content is a big opportunity. As somebody who's been in the news business for nearly 3 decades myself, and branded content, we used to call it native advertising, but branded content is just, it's storytelling. So could you describe for somebody who doesn't know anything about branded content, what is it, and maybe what is it not?
You're spot on. It has been around for many, many, many years. In fact, the original soap operas were simply sponsored stories where businesses were taking an opportunity to reach an audience of a particular publication, or in that case, radio show. You're right. A lot of organizations have called it native advertising over the years. Back when I was 17 and working at my local newspaper, we called it advertorial. So it's simply an opportunity for a advertiser to be involved with, in some way, content that resonates with an audience and that they can affiliate their brand with. Totally, I couldn't agree with you more that storytelling is really the best marketing. And the Branded Content Project just helps organizations learn how to do it well in a way that appeals to their advertisers, but also aligns with their values and the relationship that they have with their audience. And there are so many opportunities for that. In many cases, readers or viewers find this kind of content just as important or relevant to them as some journalism is, depending on what it is.
I can tell you from my days leading digital newsrooms that oftentimes the press releases or the stories that we would get from local businesses would do better in terms of page views and time on site than the news of the day.
Right. Right. We all want to be involved with what's happening in our community. We can all learn from business owners, from other people in the community who have a lot to say. So, branded content to me is a pillar of sustainable digital revenue for organizations. But I also think when done well, it can really strengthen and deepen your relationship with your audience.
And that's what it's all about right now. Going through many exercises to grow what we were doing at Griffin Media when I was there. I left to start my own business at the start of the year, but it was all about community and connecting with neighborhoods and towns and cities. But I will tell you, the conversation to get some media folks started on their branded content journey can be a tough one. There are doubters out there. Just to give
Yes.
folks an idea of some of the success that you've seen, do you have like one or two examples of instances in which branded content has really maybe I don't want to be dramatic and say saved the newspaper or saved the site, but just big successes in the branded content space?
Yes. One of the reasons I am so honored to be working with Julia Campbell and the team at the Branded Content Project is they have 7 years of case studies of exactly what you're talking about, the impact that this organization has had along with the broader local media association, but specifically what Julia's built with branded content is there are so many stories of publications now reaching national advertisers that they could never reach before, about transforming local businesses, about connecting their community to their business advertisers in ways they never have before. I know for me at Dream Local Digital, one of the most successful pieces we ever created for a publication that was sponsored by a car dealership. It's going to sound silly, but it was 5 things to do when your check engine light comes on, right?
Uh,
This is stuff a lot of people care about. And the number 5 was if 1 through 4 don't work, maybe you should go see a dealership and ask for a diagnostic. But it doesn't have to be pandering to an advertiser. That's not what this is about. It's about recognizing that stories that businesses or members of the community have to tell are ones that your audience cares about. And there are many different types and approaches based on the vision of the organization. But we have a library of case studies that will make your head spin. And so while I'm excited that we have several cohorts that I know we're going to talk about, there's also the opportunity for any publication at any time to go to brandedcontentproject.com and inquire and say, I need some case studies, or I'm trying to do this myself and we're excited, but we don't really know how to sell. We have sales training, we have resources for everyone there.
So you have all these case studies, and that way, the entity that is new to the branded content space can go through them and see which path fits them the best.
That's right. Because one of the things that I'm so impressed with is every organization approaches it a little differently. We've had one TV station that created an entire travel segment and section, and they go in and talk about different destinations, different resorts, different things going on in their community. And each one, they're featuring a hotel or a destination or a park or something. And that was what works really well for them in their tourism-based market. And then we've had Word and Black publishers, which are some of our Black publishers, really deepen roots in the community and help advertisers learn how to be relevant to their highly engaged audience. And so how they've applied it has been totally different. And then I've worked with publishers who do very simple small business plays like 5 things to do when your check engine light comes on. And all of those are so different, but the point is they're all creating sustainable revenue models for those organizations. And the branded content project team is prepared to consistently share what we're learning so that
Mm.
others can join the party.
You've mentioned the branded content project a couple of times. So tell us about the project, how that works. I mean, if you want to talk about how somebody can get involved, great. But for somebody who's new to the idea of branded content, just what is this project? Why was it created? I mean, I get why it was created, but just what is the project? Is it a group of people? Do you meet somewhere on an island and talk about branded content?
Yeah, that's great. So, Local Media Association was trying to find ways to create stronger blueprints for their members in how to create sustainable digital revenue. And we kept seeing branded content, or back then it was called native advertising, growing and growing and growing. And so we sought out specific funding so that we could do more than just have great sessions at conferences. There are a lot of people that can't attend all the conferences. And so this project was created in order for us to dig deeper. So, what it consists of is training, um, that anybody can access for free, but there's also cohorts, which we've just launched a new one where organizations can apply, and if they're included, they go through 12-week boot camps. And then we share all those learnings with everybody that couldn't be there. So there is training, coaching, and very hands on work with go to market strategies, pricing, packaging, protecting margins, pitching, and reaching the advertisers. That's the cohorts that we're doing. But then all the content that we're creating, the case studies that are developed or resulted, are then put on brandedcontentproject.com so that anybody can access them. Even if you're not a member of the local media association, you can still go to that website, you can still inquire, and you can take advantage of what LMA and Local Media Consortium, who also is a big part, integral part of helping distribute the word and get the message out, because between the memberships of those two organizations, we're reaching a lot of media companies in the US right now.
That sounds tremendous. And I heard things like protecting your margins, the serious discussions that happen inside sales organizations all the time. But I also think about, as somebody who is a creative and a content creative, I think about concepts like Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, 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 right hook. It's about storytelling and
Absolutely.
educating, entertaining, and inspiring. When
Yes.
these camps come together and you're teaching these businesses, these journalism entities, how to create a branded content business. What are some of the key roles that have to come together to make a branded content business work?
So critical. I think the biggest piece that we start with is helping get alignment internally in their organizations. We opened this news cohort out for applications, and it was primarily either leadership or sales team that was applying. And many of the sales folks were like, I need your help to get everybody else on board, right? Because it really does take a alignment internally about this opportunity. Then we can teach you how to create it and sell it all day long. But you need the editorial team to not only embrace it, but understand it. It's not trying to be journalism, but content around travel or wellness or local business stories is also appealing to an audience. And so we need to get alignment that this is not something that is shoved onto the bottom and the back of a website. It also deserves highlighting, and the revenue and traffic that it brings support sustainable journalism. Like, that's really what we're trying to do, is find ways to do that, but also surprise and delight your audience with this really relevant content. So I think internal staff alignment and embracing the opportunity is really step one. And in our cohort, we're going deeper than we've ever gone before in that rather than just offering product and sales training and pitching, we're also going deep in go to market, right? And
Mhm.
there's several options for fulfillment. Branded Content Project has resources that are available to a market, or they can do it internally if they happen to have resources. Many organizations don't right now, and we talk about pros and cons and different options for outsourcing. And there are several options there. So wherever they are, we can meet them where they are and help them create a high impact, high margin business that also surprises and delights their audience.
So businesses, they'll have comms teams and PR teams, and there's a lot of this that they could be doing for themselves, but it's hard to replace the built-in community audience that a local newspaper or local TV station has. So, what would you say to somebody who would say, "I could do this for myself"? Why would a business go to somebody in the media to help them with this?
It's a great point because even small businesses now are publishing their own content every day on their websites, on their social media channels. But you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about two things, right? There's the valuable audience that local media brings to the table. It's a highly engaged audience. But I think the second piece that's so critical to it is trust.
Mhm.
When content is affiliated with a local media company, not only does it have the opportunity to be much more widely distributed, but there is a level of trust and value added to that message in ways that a local business, even a large company, there are some national advertisers involved in some of our projects over the years that could never have created something quite as compelling if they didn't team up with that media company. So the opportunity for media and businesses to really connect and create mutually beneficial pieces is so high that we're just really excited to be helping guide media companies to not only doing it, but doing it in a way that's really effective for them.
So, I used to work at a TV station. We were a video machine. Newspapers are written. Talk to me about platforms. Is it written video and audio? What could it be? What is it not? What platforms are we talking about here for branded content? And does social media come into play at all?
That's a great question. And the answer is all of it. So, branded content can be done super effectively with video. It can be done with podcasts or audio or a combination of both, like we are right now. It can be done with print. It can be done with interactive content, images. We've had some companies in the past create sections of their website that have interactive opportunities to follow hiking trails and learn more about, have maps and polls and photographs and user generated content. So it could be anything from one individual piece to a series to a section of a website. And the sky's really the limit depending on your advertiser, your capability internally, and topics that really add a lot of value to your audience and your advertiser. And then distribution on social media is a really important part of the process. We want a strong place on the media company's website for this content to be highlighted and promoted. And one of the biggest ways they're promoting it is on their social channels by including features. And there are really easy ways, both on the company website, media company website, and social, to delineate that this is indeed sponsored content. Most clients or I'm sorry, audience members don't really care. They're like, "Oh my goodness,
Right.
a guide to all the skiing for this season, I'm in," right? And so we walk them through the different options, but also how to do it in a way that honors church and state and delineates it appropriately, but has it all over the website and social channels. And the final thing I'll say is a lot of companies can also pull it back into traditional media. We've seen it featured on radio, on TV, and in print, where they're reverse publishing the digital branded content right back into traditional media as well, if it has the right appeal to the audience and feels like a good fit.
I love when I'm hosting a podcast and I learn something. Reverse publishing, that is new to me. That is fantastic. I,
Yes.
I've I've talked to newsrooms, just aside from this conversation, really encouraging them to embrace branded content. But there is that doubt. There is that sort of like that journalist, that feeling inside, like this is something I should not be doing. This is a line not to cross. And I
Right.
would just say it is another form of advertising, but transparency is what's most important. And you spoke to that because it really truly is all about trust. What would you say to somebody who is just they're not feeling this
Yeah.
concept of branded content? How do we get them unstuck?
So, one thing I'll share is that my degree from college is actually journalism. I studied journalism. I have very passionate about journalism, but I like making the money to pay for it. And I happen to have skills on that side of the fence. And so that's why I ended up being in marketing and advertising the majority of my career. And what I would say to get unstuck is the first thing it takes is an open mind. And there is nothing wrong with wanting to see data and see proven models before you experiment. And that is something that the Branded Content Project takes very seriously, as does Local Media Association and Local Media Consortium. We want this to be effective. And so we have data around how it appeals to advertisers and audience. And the point is, you need to set your own mission and values as an organization and find a way that fits with your particular brand. Trust is really important. Transparency is critical. And that's what we spend a ton of time on that. But I think the third piece to it is also quality and fact checking. So we aren't talking about, letting an advertiser, a small business write something themselves and then putting it on the front page. We're talking about several different methods depending on style, mission, and resources to create content that is accurate, appealing, but also transparently sponsored. And so I'd say if you're stuck, think about everything that you don't want to happen, but be open to what could happen. And let's talk about some data, some best practices, and find a way that can culturally work with you and your publication.
And if it works from a revenue perspective, I'm just thinking about this here. You're making more money. Isn't this an opportunity to hire more journalists, to bring more journalists into the fold, to get for more opportunities to actually grow the industry as a whole? Local Media Association is so dedicated to helping newsrooms with sustainability, but they're also about capital J journalism. And so isn't branded
That's right.
content just good for journalism?
It really is. To me, anything that appeals to the audience and engages them, plus helps pay for journalism, is a win, right? That is just a winner. And in this case, we also can create a lot of utility. You know, when people are coming to a media company website, they're not just looking for news. They're also looking to save time and find things to do with their family. And branded content really offers the opportunity not only to generate revenue, but to create that utility and interesting other pieces and plus get paid for it. So I, always encourage media organizations to think about like what is some of the utility we want to have on our website that we don't currently have our own resources focused on or that we want to but we need to get paid for. In some cases I mentioned one that was a whole travel section on their website that the organization never could have afforded to spend the time on had they not had that underwritten by multiple advertisers. And it could be anything from an infographic to a things to do this weekend newsletter to a video about what's happening in your community. All of those elements could be underwritten and sponsored. And then the final piece is sometimes your advertisers can help you create the content. Maybe they have great ideas or resources or data or tools that are useful to your audience that you don't have. And in that case, that's a marriage made in heaven.
It certainly is. In fact, teaching business entities to, and I call it activate like a newsroom, is helpful both to the journalism platform and their own. If they're doing it for themselves, look, we always tried to be fair but be helpful. We wanted our content on our sites to be helpful and useful. It goes back to educate, entertain, and inspire. But if it's not actually helpful, it's not adding value to their day. And that traffic, I saw it for myself for 20 years. This content it performs really well for these websites and digital properties.
It does. In the early days of my business, so let's say almost, between 10 and 15, 16 years ago, we had a local newspaper that had a section of its website that businesses could post. And it was an entirely separate section, but it would be anything from, what's happening to coupons, et cetera. And I had 40 clients on that platform that my team and I created the content for. And consistently, we were the highest traffic section of the site. My team and I were the highest traffic journalist in that place. And it doesn't mean that the other writers weren't awesome. They were, but people only want hard news so much. Then they might want to know, oh, wow, there's a new spa opening in town, or there's this to do, or I can go to this thing with my kids. How exciting, right? Like it takes a mix to be completely relevant, which is exactly what you're saying. And the traffic proves that people want to look at it and read it.
It is basic economic supply and demand. And speaking of demand, I think that when people watch this, when newsrooms, when digital sales leaders, when the presidents and CEOs of media companies see this, they're going to be like, how do we get in on this branded content project? There's a new cohort announced. There's a cash camp coming up. But if you're not involved with this, Shannon, where do I point people? How do I get them involved?
I love that you're saying this because we want to impact as many media organizations as possible. And tomorrow morning, I'm leaving to New York. We're going to kick off the first cohort, which is called the Cash Camp, where we're spending 12 weeks helping take media companies through a process. There will be 3 more of these cohorts. So there are 2 ways people can get involved. The first is I would go to brandedcontentproject.com, sign up for our email newsletters, and follow the site. There is free sales training right on the site. There's a way to reach out to us right on the site, but the newsletters will constantly educate you on the latest case studies, what's coming, and the learnings that we're having. The second thing is and I always encourage any media organization to go to the localmediaassociation.org and subscribe to their website too, because you'll get even a broader perspective on case studies being covered in a number of fronts, in addition to the big wins we're having at the Branded Content Project. So those are 2 ways to stay involved. And you can also email me at shannon@dreamlocal.com.
Fantastic. And as I said, go visit the Dream Local website. I was very, very, very impressed. And I would say also, if you are a news organization and you're not a member of the local media association, I can tell you, in my role at Griffin Media, we were members of the LMA. It was very worthwhile. I was part of things called the Digital Club. Is great for contacts, for information, and the research is second to none. I can't encourage enough folks to be members of the local media association. Is there anything I'm missing, Shannon? What have I asked you?
No, I think you've covered it really well. And I say that there are elements that the first thing to do is get aligned in your organization to just even learn more about the opportunity, then explore different ways to pursue it and look at we have monthly calls where we educate. Anybody can join the monthly calls, the newsletter. We want to help as many organizations as we can. And I'm thrilled to be part of the process.
This has been Keep It Local, a podcast of the Local Media Association. If you got value out of today's podcast, why not give it a review wherever you heard it and share it with a fellow journalist or an entire newsroom? Until next time, for Keep It Local, this is Ryan with the Local Media Association.